When episode 3 came along, it brought a whole lot of changes that shifted up the meta, along with KO's introduction and Fracture shaking up our preconceptions on map design. Now that we're heading into the final act of the episode, we thought that it would be a good idea to take a closer look at the meta through the eyes of each role. What's up ProGuides fam, it's Royal G, and today we're going to cover the 2 best agents of each role, what makes them unique, and discuss whether their position in the meta is being challenged either by other rising agents or potential nerfs coming to tone them down. So buckle up, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't, and let's head right into the action. Starting off with the most turbulent role since episode 3 came around, the Initiators have been the rising stars in the meta as information has slowly started to become king. Much like the phase when double controller comps were becoming popular, double Initiators have become a hot topic that a lot of teams are starting to look closer into in pro play. But one Initiator that has stuck along for the ride even when there was only one spot on the team for Initiators is the undisputed king of information, Sova. Any player that plays Valorant competitively understands why we always rank and speak so highly of him. He's the ultimate info gatherer, which means he always deserves a spot in a team comp as long as you're planning on getting the spike down. He has a good mix of damage utility with his ult and shock darts, and he has a ton of info gathering in his drone and recon role. He's a well-rounded agent that provides a lot of value in basically any situation, and the best part is his skill ceiling is insanely high with his abilities, which means his potential is limitless. But keeping that in mind, sometimes we have to ask whether Sova has been at the top for far too long. His role on a team is super unique, which makes it hard to replace him, which means every team will basically choose Sova over other Initiator agents. So the question we have to ask is whether he deserves a nerf. As it stands, there doesn't seem to be any information pointing towards Sova getting a nerf, but I think it's definitely a possibility. Sova isn't quite overpowered, but just really good in most situations, which makes it hard to judge whether his dominance in the meta is actually a problem or not. But we'll have to see as Valorant Champions rolls around. Although the king of Initiators is undeniable, the runner-up is actually not too far behind. If you guys have seen her bird enter your sight before, you know that it's probably too late to turn and you're in for a lot of trouble. Skye is our pick for the second best in the role because she is the closest equivalent to what Sova brings to the table. She has a do-it-all kit, she has awesome flashes, a great scouting ability, a strong informational ult, and the best heal in the game. Although she's great for every situation, she's weaker than Sova for one main reason, and that's only because she can't replace Sova's informational prowess, except for on maps where his arrows don't fly, like Split. But that's not to say she isn't uniquely powerful in her own right. After all, she's the main reason why the double Initiators have become a regular occurrence for pro teams. She's already been hit with quite a few nerfs since episode 3, so we don't think she's up to bat anytime soon. Currently, she sits in a comfortable spot in the meta as an agent that's not quite the optimal Initiator pick, but always welcome on teams unless you're choosing her over smokes when your team needs smokes. I mean, the trend at this point is that Initiators are in a great spot role-wise in the meta, and if you're on the fence about picking up an Initiator or becoming an Initiator main, this is the best time to give that a go. We'll even make it easy for you. Head over to ProGuides.com where our Radiant and Immortal level coaches are on 24/7 to transform you as a player. Whether it's to role swap to a new role or learn the ins and outs of the game or an agent, we've got you covered. Just click the link in the description to get a taste of what it's like to improve fast and win. Back on the topic of double Initiators, KO has slowly seen a rise in popularity for teams as his suppression ability is becoming better utilized. Teams like Cloud9 Blue and 100 Thieves have been seen running KO in their lineup to great success, and it's not hard to imagine a meta where suppression becomes a necessary counterpick to defensive teams. I think KO is fighting with Skye right now for the number 2 spot, but Skye is slightly edging out KO due to her more conventional uses. I know we haven't touched on Breach, but he's not quite a contender for most of the map pool currently. Breach is just a niche pick that is uniquely strong on Fracture to counter Killjoy's dominance, but doesn't turn heads in other ways, so he's unfortunately in last place. Entering the Sentinels role, we have to give props to an agent that has remained relevant in the meta ever since she was first released, and that is Killjoy. Killjoy has sort of cruised through on the Sentinels meta not only because she's really good, but because other Sentinels have started to feel lackluster in the meta. And being the role with the least representation, it's not hard to be first when the other 2 Sentinels are just falling too far behind for their own reasons. Killjoy fulfills a lot of the Sentinel duties really well, like flank watching, site anchoring, and maintaining a strong defensive presence on the map. Her attacker side isn't weak either with her ultimate and mollies for post plant. She is kind of just a well-rounded Sentinel that performs well in most situations. Meanwhile, other agents like Sage and Cypher sort of struggle because they lack that versatility. Sage sacrifices defensive and offensive ability for support, and Cypher is somewhat lackluster on attack. As such, it's hard to really replace Killjoy on any team when she has already fulfilled her purpose. But as we all know, the Sentinel's role is about to have a newcomer by the name of Chamber, and he might shake up the meta quite a bit. Although Chamber isn't out yet, I think he's a solid second place, if not a contender for the crown. Full disclaimer, I'm going to be a little speculative here, but from what we know, Chamber brings a unique twist to the Sentinels roster that gets me pretty excited. As you guys may have heard before, the best defense is a strong offense, and Chamber seems to be a hypocritical agent that is uniquely offensive in a role that is thematically defensive. What makes him so interesting to me is that he holds a set of tools that sort of takes Sage's weakness as a semi-defensive agent and supplements it with mobility and eco-friendly aggression. Chamber's abilities aren't particularly strong for defensive purposes, but covers it with the ability to move around fast on defense like a Yoru, while making it cheaper to take duels because of his Headhunter ability. This offers him a unique ability to play around small utility distractions like his trademark, while also having an escape if necessary. This means that either Chamber can aggressively hold space on the defense and escape, or even play retake by taking the fight on site and then teleporting out. His ultimate even supports that playstyle as well, by being an op that covers a key weakness of the op. Traditionally, the trade-off is that after you shoot, the enemy can gain a lot of space without you being able to contest again. However, if a slow is placed on kill, then that means the space gained is considerably less, which also means you can be much more aggressive with the angles you take. This plays into his strengths as an agent and can be very scary to deal with. As we all can probably guess, my opinion on the Sentinel's role overall is that it's a little lackluster as it stands apart from Killjoy. With that said, it's hard to justify Cypher or Sage coming in to challenge anyone's spot from a pure Sentinel standpoint, although each is still viable, and Sage is good for non-defensive reasons. Meanwhile, agents from the controller role like Astra and Viper actually chip in on the defensive prowess with their kits, which fills in the hole for Sentinels. And if anything, Chamber might actually be another agent coming to take a duelist spot with how he functions as an agent, and that means Killjoy is pretty much solidly a lock-in for the time being. Hopefully, we can see some buffs go to Cypher so he can feel a little bit more impactful, but I think Killjoy is in a good spot right now, and Chamber might just be a big meta shakeup. Now, onto controllers. I think we all know Astra is pretty much the undisputed best despite the big scare at the start of episode 3. Most of the community thought Astra fell out of the meta after she got hit hard with nerfs, but time in VCT Berlin showed us that when played right, Astra is more than deserving of her place at the top. I think one of the main reasons this is the case is not only because she has very versatile smokes, but maybe because of the lack of powerful Sentinel presence currently. I think a lot of what sells her as an agent is her suck and stun, as they are basically as good, if not better than most Sentinel agent utility for stalling. You can run through a molly, you can run through a Cypher cage and break trips, but you can't break a star, and you sure as heck can't run out of a gravity well unless you react instantly. That makes her stars very scary and gives Astra a lot of pressure on the map by simply just placing them down. Apart from that, her smokes are awesome, taking them back even gives a moment of vision denial, and her ultimate has only become stronger and stronger as teams experiment with it more. All in all, just a solid agent that plays Valorant like it's StarCraft. Get it? Stars? Astra uses... Next up for our controllers, it's not hard to guess that Viper is easily in second place. Ever since her buffs earlier this year, she has become a class of her own with how impactful her abilities have become. Obviously, the reason we don't place her as number 1 is because she's not quite a good smoker, so she doesn't fulfill the traditional controller role. Yet at the same time, she offers a unique take on map control and vision denial through her Toxic Wall. Her ultimate also follows along with this idea, being a round-winning ult considering how hard it is to contest a Viper or anyone inside of it. This honestly makes her feel more like a Sentinel than a controller at times, but on maps where she's strong, she easily opens up a spot for other agents by taking over the controller spot. As it stands, she takes precedence over Astra on any map she's great on, and on some maps, she comes as a second controller along with Astra to facilitate map control and fake information. Maybe she actually deserves to be in first place instead. It's hard to say. On the side of nerfs and potential agents that challenge the top 2, I would say that Viper is probably the closest to getting a nerf, as her ultimate seems to be quite oppressive to play against. There's really not much you can do against it, other than hope that you either spam Viper somehow or catch her sleeping. For replacements, I think we can all agree that Brimstone is nowhere in this conversation, and honestly, Omen wouldn't either if it weren't for the speculated Omen buffs that were leaked somewhere. I don't know where. If it's fake, don't at me. But assuming that Omen does get the buffs that people are hoping for, this could give Omen a second lease on life, and give him a shot at dethroning Astra. But the current Omen is a little lackluster and therefore can't compete much anymore. Now, let's talk about the fun role that is honestly a giant clown fiesta. In pro play, duelists are becoming less and less favored, while in ranked, every player and their grandma is trying to lock in Jett and Reyna faster than their teammates. It's crazy when two sides of the game have completely different approaches, but at least one thing I think everyone agrees on is that Jett is just the GOAT of duelists. Space creation is an art that, during the times of CSGO and other tactical FPS games, required tons of research and optimizations for entry pathing. Nowadays, Jet players just toss a smoke down and dash into them, and bam, you have half of the site already. It's honestly a little gross to me as someone who's played CSGO for years and has done tons of research on entry pathing, but if you can't beat them, join them, right? Jet's dash alone makes her pretty much irreplaceable on every team, and that's honestly all I really want to say about her. I think you guys all know how strong she is. Hopefully the quote-unquote bug that made her gun take out slower after the dash becomes a reality in the near future. But that's just me. Think what you want. I just feel like free space creation is just too overpowered and gives an attacking team way too much initiative. Reyna sits at second place because as the community improves as a whole, it's much easier for Reynas to enter a site now than before with how players are able to support their entries. And also, Reyna can just bait the Jet dashing in. More or less, because Reyna relies on kills to gain momentum, any changes that facilitate that make her indirectly stronger. That happened at the start of the episode when all utility across the board got nerfed, and also from what I just said, which is the community as a whole leveling up. Her kit is also pretty well designed for lurking as well, believe it or not, since your goal is to sneak up on the enemy to isolate a duel anyways. But of course, that doesn't mean your lurking Reyna is doing it right. I'm not defending them, just stating my opinion as a Radiant. Okay, so something else that really shakes up the Duelist role and makes it feel like a fiesta is that because it's a role dependent on space creation and getting kills, pretty much any agent that fulfills that role can take a spot. Obviously, Jet is not getting replaced, but double Duelist is becoming less and less played in favor of double controllers or double initiators and whatnot. And even then, Raze is a close alternative to Reyna, while Phoenix and Yoru sadly await their rework. Chamber is a potential replacement for the second Duelist as well. So if you think about it, we have like 5 or 6 agents that challenge the second Duelist spot, like Raze, Viper, Skye, KO, Chamber, and maybe even Sage. I can't tell if that just means being a Duelist is poorly defined, or that other agents just have better tools to support a team than a Duelist that's not Jet can. Either way, there's a lot of options when it comes to talking about Duelists, and some of them aren't even from the role specifically. And that pretty much wraps up our take on the 2 best agents of each role, what makes them unique, and what challenges their position. I'm also interested in hearing your thoughts, so let me know what you think, and also don't forget to check out our website to find the coach of your dreams today. It's been Royal G, and I'll see you guys in the next one.